Do you know about the changes being proposed around the state's constitution this year? If not, don't worry. The first proposal you'll be met with on your ballot deals with donations and elections. It actually has a lot to do with COVID-19 and CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, and an organization that he founded, which gave grants to people who run elections for things like protective equipment.
And so elections agencies around the country could apply for these grants, and that started a conversation about whether or not that is an appropriate way to fund election systems, which tend to be funded by state and local governments.
A vote for this would ban the use of donations from a non-governmental source or a foreign government to administer elections. A vote against would allow election officials to accept donations from outside sources. Moving on to Amendment number 2, it addresses protections for worshiping inside churches.
This one is also about COVID-19 and the early days of the pandemic when we saw stay-at-home orders and limitations on gatherings and crowd sizes that extended to limiting in-person church services.
A vote for this one would declare the highest level of constitutional protection for the freedom to worship inside a church and requires courts to apply these when the government tries to step in and restrict access. A vote against it would keep the level of protections for churches where they currently are. Now, retirement is something many of us think about, some more than others. And why is that important? Because Amendment number 3 aims to raise the amount of money the state pays on retirement debt.
That is an issue that has come up a few times over the years. Obviously, there has been an interest in the legislature about reducing that debt and paying off that obligation.
Right now, 10% of any state surplus goes toward paying down retirement debt until 2029. A vote for this amendment would raise it to 25% for the life of the debt and double the number of retirement systems. A vote against it would keep the current system that's in place. And finally, the last amendment would provide more oversight of nonprofit organizations that don't pay property taxes.
Nonprofits that lease housing and have repeated public health and safety violations are the ones targeted by this amendment. Essentially, this is about blighted housing.
A vote for this would allow local governments to remove those property tax exemptions if the organization leases housing and has had more than 3 health code violations in a 12-month period. A vote against it would maintain the current system of property tax exemptions for nonprofits, including those with repeated health and safety violations.